So every single advice that I've given in this video series, I've done or I'm doing and I'm applying in my everyday life. I'm about to give you some advice that I don't apply myself, at least not yet. I'm trying really hard, and it's become important enough for me to make a video out of for the sake of completeness, but to date, I don't apply it. And I don't know why, but I don't. And you know what it is? Getting enough sleep. Hi, my name is Opie. I talk about health, wealth, and happiness. So the concept of sleep shouldn't be anything unique to you or me. And till recently, I hadn't made it a priority. I mean, I survive on very little sleep. And if it wasn't for my migraines, I would, have even less sleep, as in reduce my sleep completely. And the reason why it's become more important is I've read a couple of books on this and I've left it to the side. But the more I've, been watching Brian Johnson's videos, he has made it very clear that sleep should be a key indicator of longevity. You should be doing that to make sure that you're, surviving for the long term, your body's recovering and all of that good stuff. I just haven't done it. I'm not doing it at the moment, but it is something that I am working towards. So recently, the watch brand or the wrist tracking app called Whoop, I think that they're called, did a whole bunch of studies on it, and they ended up studying over 4 million nights of sleep from different users that they've got and came up with a study. And Brian and his doctor and I think his assistant ended up getting on a podcast and discussed this study as well as a few other things. So rather than me give my personal opinions of it, which is completely irrelevant because, as I said, this is not something that I'm an expert in, but I am trying. So hopefully we can apply this advice together. So let me start. I'm actually just got some bullet points. So he's basically said, avoid any strenuous exercise before bed, at least 2 to 4 hours. Actually, his doctor jumped in and he said, maybe even before 6 hours before bed. So I find it hilarious because sometimes I go to the gym at midnight, come home, have a shower and go to sleep. So for a good night's sleep, this is not the way. So in fact, we should be doing it either in the AM or early during the PM. Anything later than that, anything closer to bedtime is not going to get you any quality sleep because you'll still be buzzing, right? You'll be like jacked up and full of energy, and you won't get into that deep sleep. So advice number one, not from me, sort of from Brian, but more so the study, is make sure you're not exercising or doing vigorous exercise, strenuous exercise 2 to 4 hours before you go to bed. Light walking, yoga before bed is fine. There's very little impact to your sleep. So that's sleep, right? And in terms, another thing that he mentioned is the heart rate. I didn't actually realize how important this is. So your resting heart rate should be as low as possible, like under 50 would be amazing. But he said a resting heart rate indicates how healthy you are. And that can change depending on how much sleep you're going to get during the night. So he basically said before he goes to bed, he checks his heart rate. And if it's in his, in the 50s, he knows that his sleep is going to get disturbed a little bit. Under 50, he knows it's going to be a good night's sleep. So he just knows from the heart rate itself what type of sleep he'll get. And he's basically said he's sort of checked this for himself as a personal experience hundreds of times, and that's been a really, really good indicator, to the point that he's actually said resting heart rate is a key indicator of fitness, stress, and longevity. A lower resting heart rate supports better sleep and reduces health risks. This is obvious, right? If you're fit and healthy and in good shape, you're not going to get all these chronic diseases, and you'll hopefully end up living longer. I'm not sure if you remember the comedian Ralphie May. Amazing comedian. If you check out some of his stuff, really funny stuff, right? Sadly, very obese, big boy, passed away from cardiac issues at the age of 45. And, God knows what his heart rate is like. But the point I'm trying to make is the bigger you are, the more unfit you are, unfortunately, your resting heart rate will be a lot higher. He also mentioned before you do take your heart rate reading, sit down and chill for a couple of minutes and see what the heart rate reading is. And because if you're running around eating meals and then checking it afterwards, it's not going to give you a good indication. Heavy meals, obviously, he mentioned, and taking alcohol before going to sleep as well. So he basically said, try and make sure you take your meals as early in the day as possible. We're talking about dinner, right? He has his last meal around midday, which is full on. So after that, there's no meal after that. Maybe he has fruit. He didn't mention it. I know from other studies that Dr. Greger has done. So in this book, he actually covers this, the whole concept of intermittent fasting. So, it's backed up by studies. Again, this is not something that I do need to do, but I don't. So I need to work out a way for me to incorporate this into my life. But he's basically said, if you're going to have a dinner, make sure it's a lighter dinner and no alcohol, because the alcohol does also rev up your body. The concept of, eat breakfast like a king and eat dinner like a pauper, maybe there's some truth to that, right? In terms of wearables, so you've got your option of, a lot of people have smartwatches and smart devices. It's not 100% necessary. You can buy cheap ones. This is a smartwatch which links to my phone and so forth. He has the Whoop brand that I mentioned before, which is a subscription. I thought about doing it, but I'm one of those people who do not like paying reoccurring subscription fees. So I'm sitting on the fence about that. But if you can afford it, if you want it, get one. But even if you don't have a smartwatch, he basically said, put your fingers there and actually measure your resting heart rate, measure it for 6 seconds and multiply it by 10, and that gives you the resting heart rate apparently. So before you go to bed, make sure you don't have any blue lights on, no smart devices for an hour or more. If you can turn your phone to blue light or red light, like he's got this app where the phone actually turns red itself, and the blue light completely disappears. But the doctor said he tries to actually not have any smart devices at all for up to 2 hours, and instead he meditates or reads to calm that body and go into a routine that he has. This is both Brian and the doctor that was on the show. Apologies, I can't remember his name. And that's it. I think I've said that's it about 3 times, but this is finally it. So get yourself into a routine. Make sure that sleep becomes a priority in your life, because it does impact the way you recover. And again, and apologies if this is coming out as preaching, because it's not, because I'm not applying it today. I want to, I aim to, but it just hasn't been. The whole hustle culture has got me, and I'm working too much, I guess. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you get something out of it. Look into this a bit more. Brian has some amazing material out there. I'll obviously link the video in the show notes, but I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.